add him right now. I'm very honored to have as our guest Mr. Jerry Palm from CBS Sports. And can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Do you hear me? Sorry I'm late, but
No.
well, my brain's not working as well as it should. Getting a grip on our new reality here.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question for you. Literally from a therapeutic perspective, Jerry, are you okay?
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I mean it's weird not to be getting ready to go and cover the NCAA tournament, which is what I would always do this time of year. But it's there's no point in feeling bad for me. I didn't play. I'm not a senior whose one and only shot got taken away, or
Yep.
a Dayton team who's got a generational team and never going to get a chance to try and prove themselves, or Rutgers who hasn't been in the tournament since '91, and
Yep.
Penn State has got one of its best teams in quite some time, and those are the people to feel sorry for.
Yep. Yep. So I want to sort of talk about that pink elephant in the room first before I get to your background. And that's really what the show is about. It's about you and your life and your career and sort of how you got to where you're at now. But I do want to talk about sort of the events that unfolded last week. And I was one of the ones, I believe it was Wednesday night, where everything sort of just went crazy with Rudy Gobert and all that stuff. I know you're on Twitter a lot. I guess what was the events for you as things started to unfold?
Yeah, so I was in Connecticut at the CBS Sports HQ studios, getting ready to go on to talk about the latest bracket and all of that, and we're sort of watching in fact, Rudy. I was sitting on the set, getting ready to go on when the news came across about Gobert testing positive, and so then I got kicked off because now we've got breaking news, and
Yep.
it's going crazy. So I've got. In fact, I don't know that I was on HQ again after that, because everything it's like watching an avalanche in slow motion. Really, the whole
Yeah,
week.
it really was.
First, you've got Tuesday morning, everything's good to go. We're going to play the tournament in front of fans, and the governor of Ohio intervenes, and now you can't play in front of fans in Dayton and Cleveland, so they're not going to play in front of fans anywhere. And then Gobert tests positive, and all of sports goes south. I mean, not
Yep.
just the NBA immediately, of course, and the NHL right away after that, and NCAA very shortly after that. So it pretty much all of sports, gosh, through May, it appears, or at least the early part of May, has been canceled now. I think baseball has said that they're going to wait till mid-May.
Yep.
But it was surreal. It's like, everything is careening out of control, and nobody anywhere can really seem to get, a full handle on it, and everything's changing by the minute, really.
Yep.
But the thought of not playing an NCAA tournament is still a bit shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of what your entire year leads up to, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously for people like me, who try to predict what the committee's going to do. Selection Sunday is the big day where we find out, how do we compare to what the committee actually picked. But then for me, I still go out and cover the tournament. So,
Yep.
I mean, I was scheduled to be in St. Louis this weekend, and then Indianapolis and Atlanta. And so my season doesn't really end until after the Final Four.
Right.
So, I guess I get a 3-week head start on doing my taxes this year. It's very, very weird, and still not really used to sitting around doing nothing this time of year.
Yeah, I would imagine that you would always consider St. Patrick's Day to be tournament time. Like the two of them go together.
It's funny. Friends of mine had a St. Patrick's Day party that I'm never able to go to. They always invite me, but I can't go. And this year I actually got to go. So.
Oh, that's so funny. That's crazy. I would assume that there's a lot of people out there that want to say, well, let's put a bracket together and unveil that anyway. And what we have to go off of is, yours and Lunardi's and some of the other guys that do this for a living. But there was really no point in releasing a bracket. Is that, what was your opinion on that?
Well, the NCAA came out, I believe it was yesterday, and said that they weren't going to do one. I guess they were kicking the idea around, but it's funny in Dan Gavitt's statement. He's talking about all of these communities of people that would like to see it, the teams and the coaches and the players and fans. But he also mentioned bracketologists in particular so that they have something to compare to. But not me. I was glad they didn't do it. I thought it was not the best use of the time of the members on the committee. There was no way they could give us a bracket that would reflect what we would have seen at the end of the season if we got to finish the season. But their bracket would be official. I do that kind of thing every day. My bracket's always as of right now. This is where things stand. That's fine. But if they give us one like that, that becomes official, and then you've got the last four teams in thumping their chest saying, well, we would have been in the tournament if they had one. You don't know that because so many of the conference tournaments didn't get played. And to do an incomplete season bracket would be, I think, a disservice. Certainly not the best use of the committee members' time. And there's no way they could be as thorough in their process, which is a 5-day meeting with people scattered about the country. There wasn't any way to do it properly. So don't do it at all.
Yep. So a couple of questions about just the brackets in general. Can we officially say that Purdue didn't not make the tournament?
That's a good question. People who have, streaks, right? So many consecutive years in the tournament.
Yeah.
Since there's no tournament, I don't believe any of those streaks will be broken.
Yeah.
You can't say that they missed. Everybody missed.
So, right.
Yeah. So Purdue's, whatever consecutive tournament streak it is,
we're okay.
They were not going to make the NCAA tournament this year without at least a run to the tournament final, and maybe not even then.
Right. I also had a friend ask me to ask you why you had IU ranked ahead of Rutgers in your last bracketology brackets.
Because while IU's profile wasn't great, it didn't have anything fatally wrong with it. Rutgers is still sitting on 2 wins away from home the entire season. I won't mention the last one.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
But, nobody had gotten in since 1994 with only 2 wins away from home. And it's a very strange profile because obviously they're very strong at home, or we're not going to be considering them at all. But Rutgers, it's just a very weird profile. But if they sat there on Selection Sunday after a loss to Michigan in the Big Ten quarterfinals at 2-11 away from home, they're no sure thing. IU's profile, not great, but nothing that absolutely has to be left out.
Got it. I appreciate that. Well, let's get on to you because that's why we're doing this show. And I kind of want to go back pretty far, if you don't mind. You're from the you're from the south side of Chicago. Is that correct?
South suburbs, yes.
South suburbs.
I grew up in Park Forest at Olympia Fields. I went to Rich Central High School, which is more known for Kendall Gill, who played at Illinois and in the NBA. He was coming in as I was going out in the mid '80s. And obviously a fantastic basketball player. That's our claim to fame as a high school. But yeah, I graduated in 1981, so
okay,
I'm pretty old.
And did you play sports at all in high school?
Oh gosh, no. In fact, I am easily, I would say, the worst baseball player, worst hitter in the history of organized baseball who played as long as I did. And that's gone unchallenged. I mean, I played 9 years of Little League. I had 10 hits in 9 years. And my biggest problem, other than, not being able to hit the curveball or the fastball or even the T-ball, was, that the bat was my size. I was a little kid. I'm 6'1" now, but I started high school at 4'11". Was always the second shortest kid in my class up until the growth spurt finally hit in high school, and I grew 13 inches in high school, and another.
Oh my gosh!
And ended up 6'1". But back then I was so small. I mean, I walked a lot. I did a lot of other things well in baseball. I was a good base runner, and I could.
All right.
I was a good fielder, but I could not hit. And the bat. I think it just because the bats were always too heavy. Plus, I was afraid of the ball. But I loved the game, so I played for 9 years.
That's pretty awesome. Was there anything else like during high school that? I mean, were you watching basketball games at that point? Were you fascinated by sports in general?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a born and bred Boilermaker. So I was born in home hospital when my parents were in school. So my parents would take me to Purdue games. But my involvement in athletics in high school amounted to being a manager for a couple of the teams. And I was in the band. So I marched in the high school band. So we went to all the football games, of course, and I was in the pep band for basketball, and my high school was very good at basketball even before Kendall Gill got there. So, you got, I was always a big school spirit guy. I was at Purdue as well. And back before the cheerleaders used to carry flags around, I used to get on the shoulders of another kid from the band and carry the flag around Mackey Arena, like when the team came out and stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that, if they'd have had a paint crew or something like that back then, I would have been one of those guys in the front row for every game.
That's
fact,
awesome.
Here's my favorite school spirit story. My freshman year at Purdue, I'm taking Physics 152, my second semester. So getting into basketball season, the big lecture hall, guy hands out the syllabus. I'm looking at it, and the first test is the night of the Purdue Indiana home game.
Oh no!
So, being a freshman and an idiot, I raise my hand and I point out to the professor that that's the night of the Purdue Indiana home game, and he looks up at me and he says, "Well, are you here for education or basketball?" And I'm thinking, well, why can't we have both? But
right, yeah.
I knew better than to say that out loud. So that day comes along, and I'm dressed in all my gear, to go to the game. The physics building is, 2 blocks from Mackey Arena.
Yep.
I took the test in 15 minutes, get up, walk out, put it down on the desk, and I'm in my seat in time to boo Bobby Knight when he comes out of the tunnel. The looks on all the other kids' faces, I'm done.
Yep.
That was the only A I got in that class. That first
Just doing it in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was still a review from high school physics, though. Yeah, it got harder after.
There you go. That's so funny. And so I was born in home hospital as well. Yep. So I'm from Lafayette originally, and my oldest daughter was born there also. And obviously it's not there anymore.
Yeah, I know. They tore it down in anticipation of my eventual return and made a senior center out of it.
That's right. Yes. And then when you started to look at colleges, was it only Purdue? Okay. So you looked at others.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was always going to go to Purdue probably as long as they were good at what I wanted to study. And that was computer science. So obviously Purdue's an elite computer science school. So, and they were back then as well. But I applied to Miami. I applied to Iowa State. I was recruited really hard by MIT, who had come to visit someone else at my school. They told me they would accept me, but I didn't apply because I didn't want to go to Massachusetts. So
yeah,
I tell people I turned down MIT for Purdue. It's only kind of half true, really. But
we can say that
it was going to be Purdue. I was always I was, like I said, born and bred Boilermaker. I always wanted to be in the marching band. We go to the football games, and I would want to be in the marching band. So I got to be a 4-year All-American, and that was a lot of fun. Being in band, obviously, life-changing for me, and so as it is for a lot of us who are in the marching band.
Yep.
That becomes your family at Purdue.
And you still go back for homecoming and march with the band.
Yeah, I do. When I can. There was a while where my job would get, because I cover college football as well, that my job was kind of getting in the way from it. Then once they went to the playoff, my job changed a little bit. And so now I have more time to come back for homecoming. And so, yeah, I enjoy doing that. And not this past homecoming, but the previous alumni band we had. I got to share the field with my son, who was in the marching band that year. So,
wow.
So that was a blast. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Is he, what year is he? Is he still there?
He came back to do some school at Northwest, and he's been admitted to go back to Lafayette. But obviously everything's up in the air right now.
Yeah.
So, He's still got to find housing and stuff, but his plan is to be back at Lafayette in the fall.
Very cool. When you were at school, when you were at Purdue, obviously the sports was a big part of that. Were there other clubs or things that sort of led to where you are now? I mean, were you doing any managing or statistical analysis and that kind of stuff?
Oh, always that was always a hobby. But, we didn't have the basketball statistics that we do now. My statistical focus back then was baseball, which
really
lends itself to that sort of analysis. And, baseball was my first love in sports. I mean, no matter how bad I was, I played 9 years. I've coached, I've umped, I've reffed basketball, and I've been involved in sports one way or another forever. But statistically speaking, the first stats I always tracked was baseball because it really lent itself to that. And especially when we were younger, I had all the baseball cards. I had a lot of stats memorized. That was always, in terms of sports statistics, where my head went. But my outside of academic activities at Purdue were almost all centered around the band.
Okay. And so when you graduated from Purdue, you started working for, I believe, Kirkland and Ellis in
Yeah,
Chicago.
lawyers.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, lawyers and bankers. In Chicago, 8 years with the lawyers, or yeah, 8 years with the lawyers and 9 with the bankers. So that was, got out in 1985. I was active in the alumni community. I was the president of the Purdue Club of Chicago for a couple of years, and then obviously served on the board for years before and after that. In fact, my dad was the president of the Purdue Club of Chicago as well.
Wow.
He was an alum, so we're a legacy there. Um, but so I was always very involved in Purdue back then. Went to a lot of the games, did a lot of alumni functions. I started doing the bracket stuff in 1994, which is around the time that I changed jobs from the lawyers to the bankers. Worked in the Sears Tower for the bankers, and then in 2002 I got downsized because we got bought by one bank too many. They moved my little part of the bank world to Charlotte and decided that we couldn't come with it. So then I decided to turn what was then a burgeoning hobby into a job, and never really thought it would be what it is. But now,
Yeah.
2011, CBS buys me out, and here I am, and it's uh, I would have never predicted 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, that this kind of thing was possible.
So in 1995, and I think I read on your profile that you've been doing this since Al Gore invented the internet, which I love.
One of the first people to publish this kind of thing on the internet. Yes.
I love it. Yeah. So you said, hey, this is something I'm fascinated by. I love basketball, the statistics. I'm going to start predicting what the brackets are going to look like.
Yeah. So the way that came about was I had a new computer. I had a new database program. The internet was a relatively new thing, and I was going to self-teach all of these things. And around that time, '94 actually, the Sporting News came out with an article that the RPI formula had changed. Now, I had heard of the RPI, didn't know much about it like anybody else. It wasn't like they really talked about it or publicized it back then. But the formula was in the article. And I thought, well, I've got a computer and too much time on my hands. It's January now, so we're well into the season. I'll throw the data together and see what I can come up with. And so I did. But, back then, we didn't have school websites to go to get data. I had to go to the library and go back to newspapers in the agate type and enter stuff in by hand into my database. And so that worked out. I started sharing what I had learned on news groups, which is the caveman writing on the wall version of message boards and stuff now. And I thought nobody would care. I mean, literally enough people to fit in a minivan might care, because it's a very geeky thing.
Yep.
But people did care. They wanted everyday emails, which I couldn't do. And the next year I was on AOL, and they let us use a one-page website. So I put the data on my one-page AOL website, and eventually turned it into collegerpi.com. But you know what the real miracle of this story is? How my profile, if you will, exploded was that Penn State was good in basketball. Now, if you had gone to a bank and said, you know what, I've got this great business idea. All I need is some money to get it started, and for Penn State to be good in basketball, they'll laugh you out of the building. They're good once a generation, right?
Right.
So, but 96, they're good. A guy who covers them finds what I'm doing. We start conversing. He likes me. He tells two friends. They tell two friends. If you're old enough, you know that that's a shampoo commercial. And pretty soon, everybody who's covering college basketball knows who I am, and it took maybe 2 years. And
unbelievable.
I haven't done anything about it other than not answer my phone, or be a jerk, or get in a fetal position under my desk. But no, they'd have come through my windows. They'd have found me. So it was this thing that just blew up. And then the BCS starts in '98.
Yep.
And it was pretty easy to adapt to what I was doing for basketball, for football. So now I'm covering two sports. And like I said, 2002, I get downsized. Well, 98, my popularity, if you will, I got another boost when I discovered that the BCS people were changing the formula in the middle of the season.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm not on any SEC office Christmas card lists anymore. Because they were in charge of it back then.
Right.
But that's when I got on Sports Center and things like that. And my profile, my place in the world got a little bit brighter, I suppose. But then, 2002, I'm out on my own. Been to every Final Four since. and just covering the sport, and get to write sometimes about the games, mostly bracket stuff and
Yeah.
playoff stuff for football. But every once in a while, I get to cover a game too. And I was at the Purdue Ohio State game last year, the Tyler Trent game, if you
I
will.
was there. I was there.
Yeah, it was what a special moment that was, and
Yep.
what a great kid. I miss Tyler every day.
Yeah.
But he's so I've been able to be at a lot of really cool events, and never would have thought this was possible 20 years ago.
Was there a moment looking back from 94 on where you got a call or an email or something where you're like, holy crap, this is really happening?
Gosh, one moment. Yeah, I would say when I heard from the SEC after I called them out.
Okay.
Oh, I see I'm getting people's attention now.
Yeah.
One of the first people to call me after the guy who covers Penn State is Dave Jones at the Harrisburg Patriot News, and he's still there. He's been covering them forever. One of the first people he told was Mike DeCourcy, and Mike is a Hall of Fame sports writer. He writes for the Sporting News, and he's just a legend in our business. And he was one of the first people to reach out to me, and that was very exciting for me because I've been reading him forever.
Yep.
Admired him as a writer, now count him as a friend, and that's for me that was the first name of someone who contacted me that I really recognized and resonated.
When you just to go back even further, when you started doing that in 94, you mentioned that in 2002 was when you were downsized, correctly?
Yeah,
correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking 8 years where you're sort of doing both. Do people at work that you work with, your friends, like they know that you're doing this on the side?
Yeah, they did. And I always took the selection week off from work.
Okay.
So, obviously I couldn't do like a ton of radio during the day,
Yeah.
I still had a regular job to do. I would come in early. I'd get my work. I was a programmer. So, as long as I'm attending meetings and, getting my work done, nobody really cared what was going on. So, yeah, but you're right. There was some massaging, and it got harder every year as I went on. There's no question. But that had nothing to do with me getting downsized. I got downsized because of other forces in play. But
right.
It was getting to be more difficult to manage. There's no question about it.
Makes sense. When you started to do this and ESPN's calling and saying, hey, we want you to come on and talk about this, you mentioned Mike DeCourcy and some other people. Was there anybody that really put you under their wing and said, hey, this is a different world now, and tried to help you through that process?
Yeah, Dave Jones.
Okay.
Has always been my mentor when it comes to writing and what to report or how to report, or if there were situations where I was concerned about what needed to be said or how it needed to be said. Dave has always been my sounding board for that sort of thing when it came to the writing aspect of it. I mean, I was, it's funny because I was always a pretty good writer when I was writing about something that interested me. That wasn't always the case in high school, college. These English classes, reading books I don't care about, I gotta write, and I'm just getting by. And because I just didn't really enjoy it. But writing about sports, now that was fun, right? So I would write letters to people when I was at Purdue that I thought were slighting Purdue in the media. I was that kind of guy. So and I could write really good stuff then when I was passionate about it. So it was so the ability to write wasn't always the concern, but journalism is different than writing letters, than writing essays, and so I had some stuff to learn, and Dave was really the one that did the most of that teaching.
Do you remember the first time that you were like on major network like ESPN?
Yeah, it had to do with the BCS.
Okay.
When they changed the rules late in the season, it was in November, and the rule change didn't benefit Tennessee, but they didn't change the rules until Tennessee was out of play, and so the timing was bad. I was going to write it. I was talking to Dave about it, and Dave's like, you know what? Why don't you let me write this one, and I'll just quote you liberally throughout it. It'll be like your piece because you'll be doing all the talking, and I'm just writing it, which was a good idea because I was still a neophyte writer, and it would get more traction if he did it too. So, but that got both of us. I mean, I'm driving to my, in-laws near Indianapolis, and I get a call from ESPN, and they want me on the air, and I'm like,
wow,
I don't have anything to wear on television. I got like a polo shirt maybe I can wear on television.
Right.
So
That's
that was
crazy.
my first time on TV. But then the next year, Fox had the rights for the BCS then, so I was a weekly analyst for them about the rankings starting the next year. So I got into TV pretty early. It was fun, and I enjoy TV. I'll do TV stuff all the time. I love doing the TV stuff, whether it's CBS or Sports Network or
Yep.
HQ streaming service. I love doing all that stuff. But at first it's me in a studio looking at a camera, listening to the voices in my head, telling me what to do and asking questions. It's like, well, all right, where do I look? See that light just above the camera? Look there. Oh, okay, so that's fine.
Yeah. I can't even imagine not having that background.
Oh yeah. Well, it was, nervous at first, but now I've done it a million times, so I'm not nervous. It's a lot of fun, and especially at CBS. Everybody's got the chemistry is really good with the people on the set. Whatever set I'm on, the chemistry is really good. And so we have a lot of good interactions off the air that carries forth on the air in the way that we all interact. So I think that works out well for us.
Very cool. One of the things I wanted to ask was, in the world of Adam Schefters and these people that are all breaking news, the Woj bombs and all this stuff, how do you go about when you hear news and you're like, oh man, this is big? You've got to go through a cycle of verifying those leads and those types of things before you're jumping on Twitter. How do you manage that?
Well, first of all, I don't jump on Twitter with breaking news.
Okay.
First of all, I'll get breaking news, something legitimately breaking that I need to write about, maybe once every 3 years.
Okay.
Because what I primarily do doesn't lend itself to a lot of breaking news where something I'm going to hear before, like say Gary Parrish does or Dennis Dodd,
Sure.
Guys who are got their ears a little bit closer to the ground. But every once in a while, I'll get something, and I'll have to run with it. And I'm going to run it by an editor first and say, hey, I just heard this. What do you want me to do with this? How much do you want me to write? Whatever. And then I'll get instructions, and then I'll get on it right away. But I don't usually go to Twitter first, unless it's something that I know everybody else is going to have in a minute, and we're all writing it.
That makes sense.
But I'm rarely. My attitude has never been. It's much more important to be right than first. That's not always the way it is these days anymore.
No, it's not.
But because I don't break a lot of news, the first time I'm wrong, I'm pretty much dead. So I would much rather be right than first.
Makes sense. So let's talk about Twitter a little bit. I would assume when you release some of these brackets and some team isn't on there, I would assume the replies, it's got to be just hateful garbage half the time.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah. Some people I'll mute, especially vulgar ones I'll block.
Yeah.
Really reasons for blocking people, and that's one of them. So it's, yeah, some of it I'll respond to. I try to find something snarky and funny to say about it. If it's just vile hate stuff,
Yep.
And I get a lot of questions, and I'll try and answer those. And sometimes, especially late in the season when I'm jumping from TV to writing and back and forth, I don't have as much time to spend on Twitter as I like. But I always say that nobody has more fun on social media than I do. Some people might have as much, but nobody has more fun on social media than I do. Despite the overwhelming level of abuse at times, and sometimes I'll just walk away from it. And, I feel especially bad for the women in our business because whatever I'm getting, it's 10 times worse for them. It's insanely bad for them. So I don't want to complain too much about it because I'm not getting what they are, but but I get a fair amount of abuse, and it's usually one fan base or another, but you say, well, the team's not in the bracket. No, sometimes it's somebody's not, I'm just not seated high enough. I got you to 10. Well, everybody else has got us as a 9. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not even a real bracket, but sure.
Yeah. So I kind of joke that I've got, I don't know how many Twitter followers it is now, at 45,000 or something. People that basically hate me on Twitter.
Yep. So it's all the followers hate you. I follow you.
So we're even.
What's that?
And I hate all their teams, so we're even.
There you go. Yeah, that's what Dan Dockich always says. Dan Dockich hates your team or something like that. He will always retweet.
That thing too, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yes, I do. I hate all teams, but I hate your team especially.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, do you have a lot of loyal IU followers that give you a hard time?
So yeah, sometimes it depends on, if I'm talking about them specifically. Although,
Yep.
if I'm talking about Purdue, IU people, a lot of the IU people will just dismiss me. They'll say, well, he's a Purdue guy, so
Right.
whatever. But that's, the thing is, I'm not wrong about IU. Pretty much never wrong about IU, and I'm never wrong about Purdue. Those are the two teams I know the best.
Right.
So I'm pretty good at nailing where what the Purdue and IU are going to be because I pay the most attention to them. I know them the best. But IU fans are. Well, my favorite thing is when I get accused of being an IU grad. That happened once this year. That was hilarious.
Nice.
It was a Kentucky fan. He says, "Well, I know that you're just an Indiana homer, and you can be
Tell him the story about the physics test and booing Bobby Knight, and maybe he'll change his tune."
Yeah, that's a too long a story for Twitter, but
that's true. Yeah. You can't do that in that many characters.
Yeah, no, I don't even remember. I just retweeted that and said this is my favorite tweet of the year so far, or something like that. And even Dockage, who's an IU guy, but lives originally from the same part of Indiana I live in now, so he's a region guy. He's he even gets on it and he says, well, we wish Jerry was an IU grad, but he's not. He went to.
That's so funny. It seems a little bit like a really good fraternity of that college basketball world. You mentioned Gary Parrish and those kinds of guys. I would assume, you and Lunardi are like the two like big bracketologists.
Well, we started it. Joe,
right.
Joe was a year ahead of me. But yeah, for the longest time, it was just the two of us. And now, like me way back then, anybody with a computer and too much time on their hands is doing this. And
yep.
I don't even know. There's somebody who keeps score, which whatever. But that's but yeah, for the longest time it was just Joe and I, and we used to talk to each other during the season a little bit when we had more time. Now neither one of us has time, so our chats, whatever they come, are off season. We did a couple of the NCAA tournament mock brackets together, mock selection processes together back when the NCAA did those. That was always fun. One of the more common things I get asked is who would win a fight. Do you guys like each other, and who would win a fight? And I was like, well, I'm 6'1", Joe's about 5'4", 5'5", so I got a pretty good reach advantage, but Joe's Philly tough, so I don't know, but we get along great, so it would never come to that. He's a terrific guy, a great ambassador for what we do, and you never get a bad word from me out of Joe or about
Very
Joe.
cool.
He's terrific.
Very cool. So what do you think, I guess what's going to come out of this year? I know they're talking about giving seniors, an extra year of eligibility. I don't know that people are going to take that. Like how is all of this, like what's going to happen with all this, do you think? Anything different going to come out of this from a rules perspective?
No, we're just going to have bad memories of how the season ended, and hopefully people will take good memories out of what they were able to accomplish, before the season ended, and whether your team was going to be a tournament team or not. That's really, for the teams, all you can really do is celebrate what you were able to do.
Yep.
So, and obviously there will always be regrets about what we've all missed out on. As for eligibility, they've already done that for the spring sports. So baseball, the teams whose seasons just got started.
Yep.
Seniors have been granted a fifth year of eligibility for that. It's a little different for basketball because pretty much everybody on the basketball team is full scholarship. You've got roster limits.
Yep.
So there would have to be rules in place, and it's probably true for women's basketball as well, where you'd have to probably expand rosters and scholarship limits at least for 1 year. And then, you not only have a senior class or a fifth year senior class, but you've also got a fourth year senior class. So, you're going to lose off of, next year's team, maybe 6 guys,
Yep.
and you've recruited already 3 to replace them. And, what are you going to do with those guys now, that are coming in and competing with, another the dozen guys and nobody left.
Yep.
Well, obviously the reality is even if you do grant 5th years to people, most of them are going to leave because most college seniors at this point have got their lives planned beyond their senior year of college. They're either, if they finish their degrees, they're off to grad school or a job, and if they haven't finished their degrees, they're probably planning to finish their degrees. So maybe they could grad transfer or stay if that's what they choose to do. But it's a cumbersome task to do it for basketball. And the rationale for not doing it, other than that, would be that, they did all complete their regular seasons. They just didn't get to play in the championship, as opposed to the winter sports where, what do we have? Like 3 weeks of baseball.
Right. Yep.
I was on a radio show today with a guy who plays golf in Pennsylvania, and he said he was on the 12th hole, and they came out and said, "All right, your season's over." Huh? What? So they just got started.
Yeah.
So you can kind of understand it for them, and the scholarships in all of the winter sports are a little bit different.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think the tournament, going through, we get through all this stuff, next year we're good, and down the line, do you think they're going to be expanding the teams at all? Were we going to have? I would agree with you.
No, I say that as an old school curmudgeon, and by that I mean, Maryland and Rutgers are dead to me as Big Ten teams. That's never going to happen. Penn State's been in the league 25 years. I still haven't cozied up to that. When I was in school, the Big Ten was 10.
Yeah.
And, all these newcomers, get off my lawn. So I want to go back to 64. I thought that was perfect. Back when they expanded to 68, they were actually kicking around 96. I think once you get to that level, you've diluted the tournament so much, just make it like high school and put everybody in.
Yeah, just put everybody in. We'll have sectionals.
You've got 32 conference tournaments. Everybody has a chance to play back in. So I just think that it's fine now. It was better at 64, and bigger is worse because you dilute the field.
All right. So a couple last questions. Are you anywhere close to writing a book?
No. My fiance, though, has been bugging me to write my stories down.
Yep.
So that the kids at least will have that. I don't know that anybody really wants to read whatever book I would write, but maybe I've got a little more time this summer. I'll start to write down some of those stories.
Right. There's got to be some great stories of just coming up in the business and not. Working at, I think it was, what were you at? B of A, Bank of America. Yeah. And just
the last bank that bought us. Yeah, Bankzilla.
Right. Bankzilla. It's just, there's got to be great stories out there. So that I would read that, but I'm also a sports nut like you. It would
probably be more of a pamphlet than a book.
Yeah. That would be awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on here. I'm a big sports nut as well, and a Purdue guy, and love following your stuff on Twitter. I've got your Twitter handle down there so people can follow you, and we'll continue to do that.
All right, thanks. And thanks for having me on. I'm sorry I was late, but it just.
No worries. It happens, man.
I'm still not myself.
All right. Well, take care of yourself. Be safe and stay healthy.
All right. Thanks all of you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. All right. Well, that was exciting and fun. Being a college basketball, college football guy, I followed Jerry for several years. So this is it's been fun to listen to him. And I wanted to let everybody know that we have another show next week on Tuesday where I'll be talking to Joe Hawley. Joe is the writer for the Man Van Dog blog. Joe used to be a center for the Falcons and the Buccaneers. And when he retired, he basically gave away all his belongings. He bought a van, he saved a dog, named it Freedom, and went on the road. And so he's got a great story that I want to tell. And then just this morning, I booked a guest for April 21st, and that would be former Chicago Bears tight end Desmond Clark. So that'll be at noon on the 21st, I believe. So need to get that in the books here, and I will be releasing that on the social media channel. So looking forward to those shows, and we'll hope that you'll be here for those, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for being here.